on Earth, up until now, we didn't have an internet, and we didn't have the capacity for mass education or facilitation to occur. And now, suddenly, in the last few years, we have an internet, and we have AI, and we have the smartphones that we utilize. And now we do have an internet, we do have smartphones, we do have AI, and we do have the capacity to mass educate and mass facilitate almost the entire population of the planet. So up until now, we would suggest that has not been a feasible means of attaining what might be referred to as peace on Earth for all of the reasons we've just described. No capacity to connect everyone, no capacity for standardized education on a global scale, no capacity for distribution of higher understandings and quality information that would lead to a peaceful world. And we do have the holdovers, historical holdovers of tribe, competition, ego, destructive intention, taproot dynamics of feeding on each other and on nation upon nation and organization upon organization. And the powerful feeding upon the weak or the impoverished, and powerful nations feeding upon poor nations. So we would say that there has been an ongoing rock tumbler dynamic of learning what not to do and how not to operate on this planet. So metaphorically, we could say that that's like learning not to burn your hand on a stove by burning your hand on a stove over and over and over again. So that said, in past times, because we didn't have a way to distribute knowledge and understanding adequately, we couldn't teach another mode or another process or more peaceful and conscious way of evolving the species because it could not be delivered at adequate scale. There isn't a book, so to speak, even something as extraordinary and miraculous as the writings of the Bible or the Quran or other biblical or type documents couldn't offer the necessary support system for peace on Earth to occur. Now we have the inertia of all of these previous destructive intentions being magnified and amplified by the very technology that has the potential to save us from ourselves. AI, the internet, smart cell phones, the computer. And so we now have the option of teaching each other ways that we can learn. So for example, if you wanted to teach a child not to burn their hand on a stove, you could turn a stove up to a temperature that would not burn them and that would be uncomfortable. And you could say, okay, put your hand on the hot stove and until it feels like it's starting to cause you pain, and then take your hand away. And the child could say, oh gosh, I understand that if I put my hand on the stove, it's going to hurt. So I'm not going to put my hand on a hot stove, and I'm not required to put my hand on a red hot burner and damage my flesh and then spend 2 to 5 days waiting for it to heal. The cost of the lessons need not be as high if we build in enough of an educational support system to evolve humanity more efficaciously, in a more standardized way, in a more healthy and constructive way, in a less egoic way, less tribal way, less addictive way, meaning addiction to all forms of ego process, tribal process, money, power, status, attention, drama, addiction, transcendent of transaction and exchange dynamics. We now have the option of teaching higher consciousness and modeling it and facilitating and curating it and nurturing it into a tiny little white flame, you might say, like we would have our building here in this organization, and turn it into a beautiful, graceful, global flowering of consciousness. And that's our intention through the SME, through the technology, through this collaborative team process, this Friday educational process, and all the developments of the videos on YouTube. That's the intention, is to affect that quality of consciousness, which will simultaneously solve the climate crisis, because we would choose consciously not to continue that which is destroying the very world that we depend upon for our survival. So there are people who would say, well, we can't love each other enough to offer each other a support system that wouldn't require this rock tumbler, negativity generating, hate generating, fear generating mechanism to be the default de facto modality for soul evolution on this planet, because we just don't trust each other enough, or it couldn't work, or it's just impossible, or it's too big an idea, or we're too skeptical or too distrustful, or we don't have enough faith in spirit or faith in our soul processes. So let's just burn it to the ground, or let's just have a climate crisis and damage the world, or let's just have an economic collapse in 15 years globally and go back to the feudal times, or let's just have the billionaires of the world chop out pieces of the planet where they can bring high technology and resource focus so they can survive while the rest of the world collapses. We would suggest that those are non-tenable options or solutions, and that it's incumbent upon us as an organization and as a species to reach for something higher, some potential of absolute integrous service to each other as souls, to spirit, and to every sentient being on the planet, and to the planet itself, and to build that sustainable future together. And that we have that capacity. And if we don't have confidence in ourselves, if we're doubters of our capacity of our souls to affect such a graceful future, we would suggest that that's only fear and doubt and ignorance speaking, and habits, dysfunctional habits of the past, and even shame and guilt, unrealized shame and guilt that says we don't deserve better than to tear each other apart competitively and judgmentally and critically, and to battle each other endlessly as tribal members and competing nations.